Hi everyone, my name is Essen Root. Have you ever had someone totally shut down your idea even though it made complete sense to you? Or maybe you agreed with something instantly because it felt right. That's not just a coincidence, it's actually something that's explained by social judgment theory, which was developed by Muzaffar and Caroline Sheriff. Today I'm going to show you how this theory helps us understand why people accept or reject certain messages. I'll talk about how our pre-existing beliefs, our emotional attachment to ideas, and the way we hear messages all shape how we respond. We'll explore the theory itself, how it works in everyday life, from politics to social media, and how it can actually help us become better communicators. My first main point is the basics of social judgment theory. Social judgment theory was developed in the 1960s by psychologists Muzaffar and Caroline Sheriff. The research found that people judge persuasive messages based on their existing beliefs and not just logic or facts. The theory says we have three latitudes of zones. The first is the latitude of acceptance, which is things we agree with or find reasonable. Then there's a latitude of rejection, which is things we completely disagree with. And then lastly is the latitude of non-commitment, which is ideas we're unsure about or we're neutral on. For example, if someone already believes in universal health care, they'll likely agree with the idea that everyone should have free medical care. That lands in their acceptance zone. But if someone strongly believes in small government, that same message will fall in the rejection zone. However, something like no one should go bankrupt because they got sick might land in the middle, the non-commitment zone, and actually start a conversation. This shows how persuasion isn't about pushing hard, it's about meeting people where they are. This goes on to my second main point, ego involvement and why it matters. The theory also introduces the idea of ego involvement, which is how emotionally attached we are to a belief. The more tied a belief is to someone's identity, the smaller their latitude to acceptance becomes. This makes it hard to persuade them. Take abortion, for instance. If someone is deeply pro-life or pro-choice, most arguments from the other side will be rejected automatically. But someone who isn't deeply invested might listen more openly. This applies to everyday stuff. Try telling a musical lover that their favorite band is overrated, and you'll see them go into ego involvement. You'll see ego involvement in action. When people feel like their identity is being challenged, they shut down. This goes on to my third main point, which is contrast, assimilation, and misperception. Another powerful part of this theory is how we distort messages without even realizing it. If someone hears an idea they slightly agree with, they might pull it closer to what they already believe. That's called assimilation. If they hear something that seems too different, they push it far away. That's contrast. This happens a lot online. Social media feeds us stuff we already agree with, so when we see a different opinion, it feels extreme or even offensive, even if it's not trying to be. That's why arguments online can get so heated. We're not just reacting to what someone said, we're reacting to how we felt it hit our belief system. And that leads on to my fourth main point, which is real-world applications of the theory. Social judgment theory is useful in a lot of places. For instance, politics. Campaigns target undecided voters, the people in the non-commitment zone, because they're the most persuadable. Then there's education. Teachers present tough topics in a way that slowly opens students' minds. Then there's business. Leaders introducing change need to connect it to shared goals, otherwise employees might reject it no matter how logical it is. Then there's also therapy. Counselors help clients change their thinking slowly by working within what the client can handle emotionally. Then lastly, there's activism. Activists can be more effective by starting with shared values, then slowly moving to bigger, bolder ideas. One study by O'Keefe even shows that messages are more effective when they fall just outside someone's current belief. Close enough to consider, but not so far that they reject it outright. This brings me to my last main point, which is ethical concerns and final thoughts. Of course, there's a flip side. If we know how to persuade people better, there's a risk of manipulating them, especially with politics or advertising. That's why ethics matter. Just because we can change someone's mind doesn't mean we should always. Sometimes hard truths need to land in rejection zone, like topics on injustice or public health. The point isn't to avoid conflict, but to know when to ease in and when to challenge directly. So let's wrap this up. Social judgment theory teaches us that persuasion isn't just about strong arguments, it's about understanding where the other person stands. If we know someone's latitudes of acceptance, rejection, and non-commitment, we can be more thoughtful and more effective communicators. So to look back, we've looked at the theory's key ideas, how ego involvement changes, how we react, how messages get distorted, and how the theory plays out in real life, from politics and leadership to therapy and social change. But here's the real takeaway. Communication isn't just about changing minds. It's about building trust, listening, and planting seeds. In a divided world, that might be the most powerful message of all. So instead of me ending with thank you, I wanted to leave you with this. How would your conversations change if you stopped trying to convince and started trying to connect?